Okay, sorry about that. I was a little late. Had some technical difficulty and a very busy day. But my wife says I need to wait a little bit before I just jump into the information because many people are jumping on, and I say, okay, I can get that. All right, tonight's video is a really important one because at this point, by the way, congratulations. You made it through day 3. Okay, the fun begins. I'll just say that. And in all honesty, what to expect for day 4 is hitting some max autophagy. Your body's going to be just crushing all of the bad cells in the body. As we age, as we get older in our 50s, 60s, and whatever we are out there, right? I can tell you start to make more cells that live too long. It's called senescence, right? And the more of these old cells you have, the more mischief they cause, truthfully. I mean, what happens is you just don't heal as fast. Can you relate to that? Your energy starts dropping, right? I mean, all these bad things occur because these senescent cells actually create more inflammation. And simply, you don't feel as well oftentimes. But the fact is the older you get, the more of these cells that you create. The best part about tomorrow is you're going to be crushing those cells. Your body's going to use these old senescent cells, immune cells that have been hanging around too long, that cause inflammation, and they don't do a good job of immunity. Yeah, your body's going to use those like crazy for energy. So tomorrow is the big autophagy day where we see this max autophagy happen. There's a ratio that I'm going to teach you tonight to know if you're in that max autophagy. And many of you have seen me do it. You just need a little reminder and an encouragement to utilize your Keto Mojo to test your glucose and ketones. And I'll show you how to look at this ratio. So that's a really important thing. And what to expect, obviously, on day 4. I always say this. If you want the best test to see how healthy you are, yeah, just go without food and see how you do. So many of you are saying, okay, all right, maybe I'm not so healthy because I'm struggling, right? But let me tell you something. Tomorrow, most of you people who aren't severely neurotoxic, you break through, honestly. And it's just, you'll have daily energy. And I told my son, or my story about my son, who actually just hit play, Simon. And he kept saying to me on day 3, when do I break through again? When do I have that energy that you kept talking about? Day 4. Well, guess what happened? The morning of day 4, I still don't have it. About noon, I still don't have it. About 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, where's Simon? He was outside playing. He broke through. So, it may take partway through the day tomorrow to break through, but you'll break through, and your body is going to efficiently be using ketones. Remember, I said that. When you're looking at your numbers, you're saying, Dr. Pompa, my ketones are 4s, right? 4 and 5s. I still don't feel great. My glucose is dropping. Well, that's why your glucose is dropping, but you're still not using the ketones very efficiently, especially in your brain for energy. You're not keto adapted. Tomorrow, you'll be keto adapted. The brain will click on again. You'll feel like yourself. Matter of fact, many of you are going to feel better than yourself. And reading some of your comments, some of you have already entered that even today. So congratulations. By the way, that's what this preparation a month before the fast really does. Many of you got the results in autophagy starting day 1 because of the preparation. Remember, every fast, you get more and more efficient. Our DNA is set up for this, and when we practice it, we start getting these benefits even day 1. And by the way, one of my realizations with that is, what I should do this year, one of my goals this year, is actually just to do more even 3-day fasts. Because, again, I don't recommend that for most people because it takes you 4 days in day 5 to actually get the benefits. But once you get very efficient and you start getting these autophagy benefits and energy benefits day 1, then you can do a shorter fast. I still love that 5-day fast, no doubt. I'll still do that. But when I travel so much, sometimes it's harder to get a 5-day fast in. So I realized, I'm efficient enough where I can throw in some of these 3-day fasts, and I know I'd benefit. Also, I didn't talk a lot about dry fasting. The Ninevites I talked about yesterday. they dry fasted. They actually went without food or water, nothing in their mouth. And you get a lot more autophagy during a dry fast. Now, I'm going to say this. It's not for everybody. You know, be careful, because you're not drinking water on a dry fast. But what happens is your body needs water to survive, right? And what it does is it starts tapping into fat cells really fast. So according to many, you get a 3-to-1 autophagy, meaning 1 day is equal to 3 days. So therefore, if you dry fast for a day or two, it's like doing 3 times that of just a water fast. So, but there's issues. Be careful, right? Medications, etc. That water plays a really important role. And many of you aren't healthy enough even to come close to that. But my son did 4 days of dry fasting. And again, he's healthy. But the point is 4-to-1 autophagy. And by the way, many religions recommend dry fasting, and it's part of, they do 1 dry fast all the time. So that's something that's not new news, but the science around it, I think we're learning, wow, there's some amazing stuff that happens during a dry fast, like more autophagy. So one of my plans is to maybe do the first day dry and then 2 more days. But again, each fast, you get that efficiency. And by the way, everything I taught you the month coming up to this fast is the way I live my life. So my book is Beyond Fasting. So it goes beyond one fasting. This is the way we live our life. This is a lifestyle. And moving in and out of different diets, my diet variation principle that I talk all about in the book. It's not out yet. It's coming out at my seminar. Which, by the way, listen, you all can get the live stream and watch the seminar. It will be an amazing day watching the experts from all around the world in these topics. So I hope my staff will put that. Matter of fact, if you go back to the videos, by the way, you can go to videos on my fan page. That's dr.Daniel Pompa, and go to videos. And if you go to big announcement, you'll see me talk about the seminar, and you can get the live stream. So I hope many of you do. I would love for you to see these amazing speakers and hear more about the topics. Okay, so that is a little about what to expect tomorrow. I think it's going to be a good day for many of you. And also, if it's not a good day for many of you, hopefully you're taking the fasting trio, which last night's video, I went through on how to dose that. So don't ask that, just go back and watch the video. So, okay, max autophagy. And let's start by looking at a 1-to-1 ratio. And I don't have my phone, but I'll ask my wife to come in and do some calculations. But the bottom line is when I say it's a 1-to-1 ratio, so we're talking about glucose and ketones, okay? Glucose and ketones. So when we look at the glucose number, it is a number like 80. Hey, Marilyn, could you bring me your phone so I have a calculator? So that number 80, you have to divide it by, whoops, I did the wrong sign. You have to divide it by 18 to get the European number. So divide your glucose, the American number, and divide it by 18. And we'll do that just to make it happen. Okay, and that's 4.4. Okay? All right, so I'm obviously just making up numbers here. And then you take your ketones. So let's say your ketones are 3.5. Okay, so we'll do that one. 3.5. Well, we don't have to take that one because that's already in the number. So now look. So we're 4.4 as a ratio with 3.5. So you're not quite at the 1-to-1 ratio, right? We would need this number to be lower or this number to be higher. You following me? So let's change the numbers again. So now let's say your glucose drops to 65. So now let's take 65. Okay, so let's take 65 divided by the 18. Okay, now we're at 3.6. Okay, so divided by 18, and that equals 3.6. Okay, and then now, okay, there you go. So we'll just say that your ketones were the same at the 3.5. So now you're basically at the 1-to-1 ratio. Make sense? So the key here is obviously the glucose needs to be dropping. And by the way, Dominic D'Agostino, he's going to be teaching at the seminar. You'll get to see him Saturday if you do the live stream. He is doing the research on ketones for the Defense Department. Ketone, exogenous ketones, ketone diets, fasting, amazing research coming out of this man. But he'll tell you, as well as others, that when the glucose is up, you don't get the max benefit of the ketones. So we want to see that drop in glucose. Many of you this fast will say, my ketones did come up, but my glucose was still hanging around that 80 mark. I'll tell you right now, everything that I've been teaching you along for this month and all these videos really is the key to seeing lower and lower glucose numbers. Multiple fasts, lower and lower glucose numbers. We have to get this autophagy and eat up these bad mitochondria in your cells, in bad cells that are really stuck as glucose users. So all of what I taught you, the diet variation strategies, the intermittent fasting, right? All of that, what happens is bad cells don't adapt. Bad cells get crushed by your body. It will eat the bad cells. The bad cells can't make the dietary shifts, the adaptation. And ultimately, after this lifestyle goes on, you get better and better cells that are more behaved, create less mischief, but also are more efficient at using fat as energy when you're not eating or when you have a regular dietary change or going without food. But the bottom line is you'll start to see lower glucoses, and therefore you'll take more advantage of the ketones. So this 1-to-1 ratio definitely represents where the max autophagy starts. But obviously, some of you are going to see numbers in the next 2 days from 6 all the way up to 8 or 9, and 6 to 8 or 9. That's in those ranges, and maybe even it will say, it maxes out, I think, at 9. But anyway, so then let's imagine that ratio, right? So you're talking about, 6.5 and 3.6. You're double where max autophagy starts. So obviously you're really crushing some cells right there. So, this is just a gauge. I'll tell you where this came about and where I got it from, actually. And I have to give credit to a guy named Thomas Seyfried. He wrote a book called Cancer is a Metabolic Disease. And when they saw this ratio, people hit this ratio, they would watch tumors. And right around this ratio, the tumors were shrinking, meaning the body's going after the bad cells, right? And the tumors would shrink. If they came back off of that ratio, the tumors would stop shrinking. So they learned about this 1-to-1 ratio. I just took it, and I was in a mastermind with Tom, and I said, well, gosh, wouldn't that work for just the average person, knowing where they're getting this max autophagy? He said, oh, of course, absolutely. So, that's why I started teaching this. So the scientists themselves really figured that out. I just kind of brought it into everyday life as a really cool gauge to know when you're hitting it. So you'll have some fun with that. Many of you report, where you're at with that. Some of you may have trouble hitting it. I'm going to say this too, it's really hard to hit that just by doing a ketosis diet. You really need these fasting states. And by the way, the fasting mimicking diet, the prolone diet, a partial fast, you can hit these numbers as well. So you don't just have to do a water fast to see those numbers. All right, my wife's going to come in, so I'm going to move this to the side.
Hi, y'all.
Faith
That's for Faith Hill. Yes, so I got this from my friend Moses. Some of you may know Moses, some of you may not. And ironically enough, Moses is a God connection to our whole family.
Well, he's a young man who we're putting through college in Kenya.
He's well on his way, even when we met, and it's probably been 3 years now. And he has an amazing family. They have prayed for us. They have just really stepped up in ways that I just always know that God's watching out for us and us for him.
I'm sure we got
and
more
us
out
for
of it
him
than he is.
in a different way. But we're just so grateful for the symbiotic relationship and how God brought that together. And he sent me something today, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is so relevant to just how much when you're fasting, if you're doing it with the physical and obviously for the spiritual, or for just the spiritual, how the implications are so significant with just how we truly have to rely and depend on God, and why it really is a place of freedom to do that. So I want to share this with you because what I was attracted to and how we became friends is his mind is just so deep, it's so rich, and he just thinks so up here, and I'm just so drawn to that. So what he said is this, and he sent this to me. It says, today in the morning I was doing a quick study about the covenant God made with Abram, especially some of the practical applications that Abram did, which are significant in our lives as Christians. It struck my heart as God moved when it was dark, when Abram was sleepy, tired, and worn out from chasing away the birds of prey with his own energy. And it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces, and that's from Genesis 15:17. When Abram, the father of faith, awoke, he saw that the meat on either side of him was barbecued. God had been there, not meeting Abram halfway, as was the custom, but walking the entire length alone. This is still the way of God. We try to chase away the birds of evil which threaten our families and our country. We hold rallies and sign pledges. We make vows and make promises. But because it is our flesh, and because in our flesh it dwells no good thing, from Romans 7:18. And like Abram, we eventually become exhausted in trying. At the foot of Mount Sinai, when 3 million people heard the voice of God and witnessed a divine pyrotechnic display that so impressed them, they said, all the words which the Lord hath said, we will do. Exodus 24:3. Those in attendance at that first Promise Keepers convention weren't playing a game. They were sincere. They truly meant to keep the 10 Commandments. After all, they had heard God speak and had seen a mountain quake. But when Moses came down the mountain 40 days later, he found them worshiping a golden calf. Times don't change. People with sincere hearts say, we will keep our promises. The problem with signing contracts, making vows, and keeping promises, however, is that people fail to factor into the equation a huge component, the flesh. God is aware of this. That's why he says, I will wait until you are as tired as Abram was, and then I'll come through on my own. I don't want you to sign a contract or make a promise. I know what you're made of. I know your family. So I'm not going to meet you halfway. I'm going to do the whole thing. And I just thought, I have goosebumps even just saying that and sharing that with you. Because isn't that true surrender? And it really is hard to get there. I remember in all of our difficulty that we were going through, I was trying to figure out, like, well, how do I surrender? How do I not try? How do I give up or formulate another plan? It's just, that's the way God made me. And really it happens when you run out of options.
Energy, you just become so beat up and weak.
And when the pain of holding on is greater than letting go, you let go. And that is what God wants for us. He wants us to let go and trust him and let him know that even though we don't understand how to do it necessarily, we know that is the position and the posture we are to have before him. And watch what he will do with that. And I just want to encourage you with that. I was just so moved, and again, just the way Moses thinks and his depth of his soul is just so rich, and I just love thinking that way, and it just touched me so much. So I wanted to share it with you.
We're blessed. Hopefully Moses sees this. Chime in, Moses.
He's probably sleeping.
Yeah, he probably is.
We were chatting a little while.
He'll come in. Look for comments.
I didn't ask for his permission, but I'm sure he's fine with it.
It's funny. It's because that represents fasting, right? That's what I was saying. Is when you're your weakest, you're actually becoming stronger.
Absolutely.
And that is that lesson.
So for those of you looking for God to move,
this is the time.
This is the time.
Yeah, you're weak. That's what you should expect tomorrow.
Yeah.
Expect God to move. You're weak, but he is becoming stronger. It's his promise. He'll meet you in the weakness. Really. That's why you've got to expect him to move. Remember what I said yesterday. In the times of greatest trouble in our life, when we need the greatest breakthrough, it was fasting and praying that everybody did, and God would move. And he would step in every time when they were at their weakest, and he would move. So,
and by the way, and then you can take no credit
Yeah.
for what he does.
Yeah.
And that, to me, says it all in terms of who he is, what he's capable of. It is above all you can ask or imagine.
Physical healings, we're praying for you.
That's what
Breakthroughs in every way, we're praying for you. And I'm telling you, remember what I said, pray for our country right now. This late-term abortion thing, I showed my heart with that yesterday. It lays on me heavy. It's not political, it's both sides. This is about humanity. You know, go back and watch last night's video.
It's about what matters most in life.
I know that if we're all praying as a group for that, God will honor our concerns, because our concerns now, his concerns become our concerns.
Absolutely.
And now all of a sudden, he'll enter into many of the breakthroughs that we all need. Your seeds will grow. So there you go. Awesome
All right,
stuff.
y'all.
All right.
Have a good night.
Mm-hmm.